All right, so this is video 2, and before I start to go into the actual value shading of this thing, one of the things that I wanted to break down a little bit for you guys is just the layering of thicknesses of lines that are going on here. So I've established that the thickest, most aggressive lines are happening here on the shoes, but I didn't really talk about how I went about dividing out my picture plane with lines. So you have the thickest lines here. One of the things that I did, because this little cloud right here, it kind of goes with the shoe, and so I went into it and I did thicken up the outside line of the cloud. If you look on this other side right here, I didn't do that on this other side. And you can see there's a big difference. You can notice this cloud, but not so much this cloud. So if you go through and you just take it and you start to thicken up, just that little outside line, you can see, I mean, it is a difference there. In variation, you will notice that cloud. As well as if you do the same thing, you know, I went into it and I thickened up, not every star, but I did, you know, some of the larger stars, like if I went into this one and used a thicker line, even in the corner right there, even if I didn't want to do the whole thing, it would definitely help that. So anyway, the thicker lines are going in the foreground. You've got some very heavy value. I wouldn't necessarily call these thick lines in the background, but you have heavier value in your background to kind of bring the eye into what this focus is here. So you can see these lines right here, and this checkerboard is behind this cloud looking formation thing here, the thing with the dots and the thing with the stars on it. I would say that that is in the middle ground. And as you can see, the value and the line work, I mean, you've got some kind of medium lines that are going on here, but it's not as hefty as these lines that are overlaying it right here in the foreground. So I did, just to separate my space, I did vary the lines. I didn't make my middle ground lines as harsh and as strong as the ones, say, that you might see in the foreground. The lines in the background are not as pronounced, but the value is very heavy. So that's one of the things just to keep in mind. I did this framing right here around where the shoe, like the focus is on the shoe. I did make that heavy so the eye would kind of come in and draw into the shoe. So in general, if you keep your value a bit heavy-ish on the outside background area and behind the focal point, or if you do the opposite, you make it really bright behind the focal point, it will stand out. But it's almost like, you know, when you put a black frame around a piece of artwork, this is what this is kind of doing. It doesn't, you can't help but it draws your eye into that area of focus there. So anyway, I do want to get into a bit about value shading and the variety of things that you need to think about when you're adding value to this. So in your instructions, it is saying after you outline, and I would completely outline some things. You may need to tweak some things here and there with your outlines, but I would say after you do your lines, you're actually going to be using your Micron Pigma pens to add cross-hatching, hatching, and pointillism. So you know what cross-hatching, hatching, and pointillism is, but I am going to just review you a little bit on those things, and we're going to talk a little bit about the layering process with those things. So I'll look at my time and see how this video is going here. So I'll be flipping back and forth between some things, but we're going to get into, let's just start with the background here. In general, you work from the background and you move on into the foreground. It may, though, help you to do partially your shoes first, so you'll kind of know what to do. But in general, as a rule, you're supposed to go background to foreground. So after you outline your little sections, if you have little sections back here, what I am doing here, and this is with my 01, I'm just adding, and these are just little diagonal lines coming off of this, and I'm not going really heavy. I'm actually using kind of the side of my pen. Y'all probably remember doing that some last year when y'all did your value. So I'm just going in one direction. So this is hatching. You could leave it as just lines going in one direction. I am gonna cross these, but it's up to you guys as to what you're wanting to do here. So I'm just going in the opposite direction with this. Usually if it's just a linear up and down type shape like this, you could go diagonal. You can also go up and down. I'm just gonna start going up and down here. I'm doing a little build here with my lines, and you can always go back and just kind of emphasize that outline right there. So if you look at this, and I could continue to bring this down and blend this just a little bit more. If you look at this, and then you look at this, that was kind of the angle I was going into. I left the white here, and in general, one of the reasons I started here and I left the white here just to bring more focus to your shoes. So if you have a dark and a dark right here, you need like a little white space to add a little separation with that. So yeah, that's my very, very dark background right there. So with that thought here, another background that I have that is kind of a heavier background, you're going to see these little lines that I made right here. The first thing that I ended up doing, and I don't know if you guys can see this, and it may not be apparent, but I actually did do pointillism the first time around, and then I went back over it and just did hatching lines over that. The white space, I ended up using kind of a thicker pen for that to make that work. So basically the point of me showing you guys this is just to show y'all the layering process and how you might do that. So I went from this background, and then I'm going to my extreme other background right here. So I'm going to do just a little bit of this, of the pointillism. So the main thing when you do pointillism, you don't want to go like that with your pen. It just needs to be really soft dots. If you go really heavy, it's going to mess up the tip of your pen. It does help to have a foundation of something kind of dark right here, just to give you a little direction as to what you want to do. You can even take your pencil and very lightly make lines as to where you want your value to start and where you want it to end. So with the darks, I usually add, like if there is an overlapping object, I'll usually add the darks in the area that is going under the area that it is overlapping. So that kind of helps me. I do the cast shadow, and then I move away from that and make it lighter as you go out this way. So that's my first little stage. You could leave it like that. That would be absolutely fine. In the white area, I started out, like this is gonna be kind of a dark color, or it may end up being black and white. I'm not really sure when I actually start adding color. So in the white, I'm just gonna add a little bit of this, and then I'll leave it. Okay, so the next little thing that I'm gonna do here, I'm just adding hatching lines. And it just gives it a little bit more movement right there, a little bit more variety. I could add a little bit here. Like I said, I didn't choose to do it there, and I actually added some thicker lines right there. All right, I'm going to go into the next video. The next video goes into the middle ground, and then we'll go into the foreground. So I'll see you soon.